afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's interview with on Livewire TV. If you're new here, first of all, welcome. Super excited to have you here. Livewire TV is the online show where we like to interview business experts around marketing strategies, mindset strategies, and also marketing strategies as well to really help business owners just like you get through the current situation and give you guys some tips and practical tools and strategies to help you grow and to thrive. Livewire Media is a part of Livewire TV even is part of Livewire Media, where we do corporate photography, videography, and video marketing. Now, we've had people come on talking about all sorts of strategies when it comes to business strategies, but we haven't had anyone come on and talk about compliance and how to keep it stress-free, because let's be honest, when you're keeping compliant in terms of like GDPR, you're trying to chase invoices for people, you're trying to make sure you've got all your ducks in a row, if you like. It can be stressful and it can be very boring. And let's be honest, it's not a thing that a lot of business owners want to do. But Annabel from KoffeeKlatch, that's exactly what she loves to do. So Annabel is absolutely incredible at what she does. She is all about efficiency. I love her badass attitude. She's got a can-do attitude, like no problem is too big for her to solve. And she thrives of helping other people to solve their problems as well. Now, she specifically works with freelancers in terms of helping them to keep compliant. But the thing that I love about KoffeeKlatch is it just takes the jargon out of everything to do with compliance. They're not stuffy. They're really down to earth and casual, and they just make things really, really simple, just like they should be. So Annabelle, tell us a bit about you and how you got into helping businesses to keep compliant.
Well, I still wince at the word compliance, actually, because I feel I'm a natural born rebel, as a lot of entrepreneurs are. And so having a business centered around kind of doing what you're told is about the antithesis, the opposite of what anyone who knows me would expect of me. You know, I think 41 years ago, I was getting ready to start the business I run today. And although I was very focused on helping my customers comply, I was very much into employment law and employment tribunals. The idea that a lot of compliance applied to me was kind of somewhere else. You know, like a lot of people, you set up your business to do what you do. And the whole compliance thing hits you, boomf, normally when something goes wrong, doesn't it? And that's the earliest point. And from there, I've been on a journey. And I'm still running that business, but about 12 years ago, I realized that there are loads of freelancers and micropreneurs who never really grow their business beyond the startup stage because they get hit by a non-compliance problem. They get hit by an unexpected pay-as-you-earn bill, a VAT penalty, or at the moment, should I mention it, post-Brexit complications, IR35 changes, that sort of thing. And whereas really big businesses have got a whole legal department to go and ask, and even chunkier medium and small businesses have got insurance-based stuff that they pay for every month because they've got the fat in their budget to think, oh, something might happen. There's a whole chunk of us who've got nothing because every penny we've got is going into scaling the business, into making it work. And then we finally get in the hands of lawyers who go, and it's like the lawyers is like the plumber's suck, isn't it? You know it's going to be really expensive when a lawyer goes, and before you know it, they're adding documents onto your business that actually make you feel like you can't run your business. And I thought, this is mad, you know, bolting compliance onto when you've already created a business model is a way of slowing it down, isn't it? It's like insisting that people take the first driving test when they're driving a Ferrari in the fast lane. It's a bit late to go. The thing about the indicators is, you know, you're just going to create a massive crash because you're distracting people. So I think we need to get light touch compliance going a lot earlier and with a lot less stress and a lot less expense. There's no substitute for having mega £1 million corporate lawyers if your business is that large, but you need to get that large to have those budgets, don't you?
Absolutely. Guys, I would love it if you would drop any comments or questions that you have in the comment section below. Annabel has been very, very kind and they've offered to help people out with genuine cases that they may have at the moment if they're open to sharing that. But also, if you're watching this on the replay, drop a hashtag replay in the comments below. I'd love to know who's watching this on the replay. And do share this out with people, because you never know in your network who this will actually impact and help. And it's all because you shared this content with them. Annabel, I'd love to learn more about the values that you have at KoffeeKlatch.
Well, that's another word, that's come up during my business lifetime. When I started a business, businesses didn't have values, or if they did, nobody talked about them. We just founded a business, it made money or it didn't, and you mostly looked for clients you liked. And it probably took about a decade before I realized that values came into that. We were writing value statements for clients before anybody actually asked us, what are yours? And over the years, I think we've tried to keep it simple. We don't have a massive mission. We don't have complicated statements. But I do have a very strong driving belief. And that is, if we don't help startups and micropreneurs to create the size of company that you want. And by the way, I'm not one of those people who thinks if it's not a multi-million-pound company, you fail. If you're trading right now from your back bedroom and you're paying your rent, as far as I'm concerned, you're a massive success. It doesn't have to be really large. But if we don't help businesses in that size to thrive and grow as big as they want to be, we're going to have a world I don't want to live in. And that world will be a world where everyone works for a really big corporation, a global, or is unemployed. And that's not the world I want my children and my grandchildren, if I ever have any, to grow up in. So I think we have to lean into this sector in a big way. And I passionately believe that. And although I love it that government occasionally sticks its finger in and decides to do stuff, the truth is a lot of stuff that is done for and to micropreneurs is deeply inappropriate because we don't have the money and we don't have the time.
Absolutely. I mean, is there a particular reason why specifically, and I have a feeling that this is going to be to do with your background, but is there a specific reason that you chose to specifically work with people within the freelance community?
It was an evolving story. We'd always worked with small businesses as well as large corporates in our, original sort of big sister brand, if you like, which is our Minicom. And over the years, we realized that there simply were organizations and individuals who really needed what we did but couldn't afford us.
Yeah.
And we had two choices, well, three really. We could make less money, which was hardly helpful because if you keep dropping your prices till you yourself go bankrupt, you still can't help anyone, can you? Or we could find a cheaper way to help people with lower budgets. And so KoffeeKlatch was born out of the idea that if we group people together for support, we group people together to solve the common problems together, then it's cheaper, much cheaper. And, we still have a nice little legal back office where if you've got several £1,000s to spend, you can do it. But we know that KoffeeKlatch customers are not there.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, then what's your price range?
KoffeeKlatch contracts start at £50 plus VAT, and they come with 6 months support, onboarding, training, videos, and updates in that period. Some of our add-ons to those contracts are about 10 quid. We do stuff right up to £250 plus VAT. So although as a freelancer, some people might be going, oh, that's a lot of money. Trust me, if you put legal and tax staff.
I was going to say, how does that compare to traditional solicitors or lawyers for our American viewers? But that's a huge saving right there.
Well, it's a very different business model. And I think a lot of the 21st century is about having different business models because traditional law is about hourly rates. You get yourself a good lawyer in the city or, uptown New York's, your cheap rate would be £500 or $500 an hour, wouldn't it? And how many hours that might take, you kind of don't have a lot of control over because they do the work and then they give you the bill. That's the model that we started work with in the 80s. Out of that has come fixed fee, actually negotiating an amount of money with your lawyer to do that. And that's very difficult for a lot of legal teams to measure how much help will you need. And it's very difficult sometimes for you to work out, should I spend £2,000 on this or whatever? There are a whole range of high street and local town lawyers working at anything between about 150 to 250-ish an hour. Some of those do fixed fees around 600 quid an hour. I'm not saying you can't get stuff below thousands, but they're very much based on the notion of you pay me and I one-to-one with you, and we do stuff either within your budget, which is one way of doing it, and then we stop, or within your problem, which has no budget, we keep going. Behind that is an insurance industry where you can buy premiums and they will support you, but normally they support you for litigation, not advice. And you don't always get to choose your lawyers. If you're going for an insurance scheme, they go, you will work with Fred blogs. And if you don't like Fred blogs, tough on you, you know. So there are different ways to deliver it. Obviously, you can buy online templates. And, you know, if you Google online contract templates, you're going to find a lot. One of the problems with many of those sites, and we review what our customers have bought quite regularly, is if you don't know what you're doing, you answer the questions wrongly. So you think you've got a contract that's tailored to what you need, but you got the questions wrong. And I even saw one the other day from a coach who downloaded a template from a very reputable site, but she'd actually got the whole thing back to front. So she creates a contract where she promised to pay her clients for all sorts of things that they should be paying her for if things went wrong.
Wow.
And I said to her, I don't care whether you use KoffeeKlatch or not, just promise me you were going to take that contract down right now.
So with that in mind, then, a lot of things for businesses have, well, a lot of laws even have come into place for businesses, and a lot of business owners are having to try and keep up with everything that's happening in terms of COVID right now. So how can businesses best prepare for COVID issues in terms of compliance?
That's a very big issue because that's a big health and safety piece of work. That's a big employment law piece of work. And I'm not a health and safety or a medical specialist. So, it really, each person needs to know what they know. You know, with our own customer base outside of KoffeeKlatch, because a lot of this has been emergency 101 at 3 a.m, we have done a ton of work about getting people ready for secure GDPR ready home working, right? Because a lot of businesses very understandably sent everyone home because it's a relatively secure environment, didn't do anything about securing the data whatsoever. So that's one element that's very much overlooked. And we are now finding, by the way, a lot of businesses do not envisage going back full time into the office arrangement they had before. We're beginning to plan a lot of hybrid, shall we say, post-COVID setups where people are working with a much bigger mix of home working and office working, and a much bigger mix of staff versus outsource freelancers, because they're looking for flexibility and scalability without massive overhead. So it's a bit late to prepare for COVID issues now. We're on our third lockdown. We're kind of preparing for the post-COVID world. We're not expecting it tomorrow. I'm sorry to disappoint you. You know, we're not expecting someone to get up tomorrow morning and say it's all off. But I think it's many changes we need to plan for now. And as a freelance community, if you can offer secure data working, online, responsive, all these other things, you're going to hit a massive uptick when businesses start to go, well, we want to grow, but do we want someone who's already set up with secure Wi-Fi, understands GDPR, knows how to work, or do we want to take on an employee who may have no idea, who may not be wanting to work from their back bedroom? What are the issues? So I think it's going to change the way some of us work forever. Some of us are already working that way, and some people will have to go back to the way they work because the job needs doing the way it's doing. I don't see anyone offering me remote ice creams, or I actually don't want to visit a remote bar any more often than I need to. You know, a Zoom bar's not the same.
It's not the same. You can't really have a drink in the same way, but it's better than having no experience at all. But guys, I'd love to know, like, let me know in the comments, like, do you prefer working from home, or do you miss going to the office, or how are you finding this whole situation for yourself in terms of working from home as opposed to the office? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts. And I think you raised a really good point there about businesses having to not only shift their strategies, but also their mindset as well. I think that's very, very important, because a lot of businesses, we can get stuck in the habit of thinking the old way is always the best way, and that's not always really the case, is it?
Do you know, I find that hard to get my mind around. The old way is really the best way. I mean, 41 years in business, and about every 5 years, we seem to re-engineer everything we do end to end, you know, from the sales process to invoicing to security and compliance. And I think it used to be 10 years, that's 5 years. I think it's coming down to 3 now. It's just part of staying alive in the business sense. You know, I think you can't really say I've finished my business model now. You know,
No.
you can't go. And I'm always quite interested when I talk to coaches about business models, because I think compliance, just like getting paid, are two parts of having a business model that most people completely ignore. So
Just on the note as well, because there's going to be a lot of coaches watching this. What do you think they need to? What are the main things that they need to be aware of in terms of making sure that they're compliant?
well, the first thing is an awful lot of coaches, very understandably, moved online very rapidly. So what we had was two coaching communities. We had coaches who were already online and, shall we say, fluent in that space, the security issues, the contract issues, the customer satisfaction issues. And we've got tens of thousands of coaches who sort of rocked up last year, understandably. And I've probably seen about 20 or 30, you know, get that program online things going. And I've never seen one person who ran that program saying there are legal issues around this.
Yeah.
The first and obvious legal issues, and these are just my top 3 from, you know, the coaching legal COVID world, is I see coaches offering unlimited access to their material, but we all switch platforms about every 2 or 3 years, don't we? People go from one to another. And are you seriously going to rebuild all your old courses so that one person can get the lifetime access? Whose lifetime? Yours? Theirs? Who's going to die first? Be sensible about what you're offering. You know, if you're offering 1 year access or 5 year access, you're making a commitment to do that across platforms. So don't go overboard. Americans are lovely. I mean, no offense about going total money back guarantee. If you're not satisfied, you'll be immortal and a superstar if you take my course. Try not to go too crazy with it, because people will want their money back, and chargebacks on the credit card systems you inevitably have to use to run an online course can actually mean you can't use them anymore. So it's better to slightly under-promise than over-deliver, than over-promise and under-deliver. And in legal terms, that's true. Another thing is we're live now, right? And if other people were to be on this program, imagine it was a group coaching call, you would need to deal with the equivalent of model release rights. If you've got people being recorded, which quite often live leads to, doesn't it? And they're telling you, you need to have sorted out, do you have the right to reuse that material and edit it?
Yeah.
And what about in live groups is another legal issue. If someone comes in and does something really terrible. Now, it's rare, but people do. Do you know what I mean? There are some very strange people on the internet. There are lots of legal things you need to think about. But the biggest one in the online world, and this is the COVID issue for stores, for online coaching, for whatever you're doing virtually, is what country are we in right now?
So this is being broadcast all over the world, but mainly in the US, around Europe and the UK.
Right. So if we were to have a legal problem, Rohini, and I'm not threatening you with any trouble, what country should we be sorting that out in? What legal situation?
The UK.
You think so?
Yeah.
So if anyone is watching this from America, what should they do?
I have no idea. Do enlighten me.
Well, you need to sort that out in your onboarding and your contracting process. So when we do online terms for coaches, which we do all the time on the KoffeeKlatch site, we've got an online section. We suggest to them that they choose what's called a jurisdiction, the country in which your arguments will be sorted out, and make it very plain. Now, for most of us, the best jurisdiction is the one we're in. And I'm not knocking our American cousins, you're lovely, but you want to be very careful about contracting to be argued about in America because A, they do love a lot of legal fights, don't they? B, it's really expensive. And C, if you're not in America, you need to make sure your professional liability insurers know that you're open to American litigation and liability. And they will quite probably put some extra money on your policy. So the big problem we have in the online economy, which we were getting to pre-COVID, but this is accelerated, is we work globally, but all law is national.
Oh, interesting.
It's nationally enforced, except for some elements of EU law. Let's not go there, you know. So you really need to sort yourself out before you discover that you are involved or engaged in American litigation. Now, obviously, that's a bit negative. The vast majority of people that you do business with will never sue you.
Yeah, right? I hope so.
Yeah, well, otherwise you can't. One of the ways you can reduce that is to have terms of business that your customers can understand. So that when they read them, they go, okay, I understand, I get this, you do that. Absolutely. Most of the legal problems that we get engaged with that freelancers have are what I call a backpack problem. And what I mean by this is I've got a whole load of ideas about how my business works and how you should access it. You've probably got a whole load of ideas about how your business works and how I should access it. If we never discuss them, they're just in our backpack. What happens if our backpacks are different?
I would say that they're not really in alignment.
Yeah, so we're going to have, at the very least, an unsatisfied customer. And at worst, we're going to have an argument and maybe someone who won't pay us, and worse still, someone who will sue us. And because we've been taught that compliance is about having strange contracts in Latin and Edwardian English that nobody understands, stuck in a drawer, preferably really big one, you know, which are mostly useful for hitting people with, you know, we don't understand how setting up clear contractual arrangements can be used to avoid arguments in the first place. So every now and then, and we certainly get this with the people who use the online contracts, if right, someone will come and say, so-and-so won't buy this because they don't like X in it. And I go, well, do you want that to be different? And they go, no. So I go, well, surely the best thing is for them not to buy it if you are stating clearly what they get and they don't want that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What it looks like. But you can use your terms not just to set accurate descriptions with your customers, but if you're offering a live service, for example, I work with a group of accountants, and one of their biggest problems has been during COVID, do they charge their clients for giving them advice about all these grants, accesses, tax, Might interest you to know that 50% have taken the decision they couldn't possibly charge their clients because they feel their clients paying. And the other 50% said, yes, but I can't stay in business if I don't have a revenue stream. I cannot offer unlimited services for free.
It's a bit of a catch-22 situation, really, isn't it? But that's where your services would come in really handy.
Well, I'm not touting for accountants' terms. I mean, they normally get them from their professional body. But it's interesting that they struggle with clarifying what they're willing to do. And then they get into difficulties with clients because they haven't clarified it with them. So if I was in that situation, and we did face it years ago in another scenario, we said, we'll do X for free. But when we get to that point, we'll stop. But we put it very, very upfront so that people knew before they started what was free, when the mix was money, and what that would cost.
Absolutely, it's all about having that sense of like I always like to make sure with my clients that we're all on the same page before anything even begins. And I think that communication part is so important because it can help you in the long run. But you mentioned earlier about international compliance, especially with the EU. And I just want to go into that in a little bit more detail because a lot of business owners that will be watching this, they're preparing right now for Brexit. So
you do realise we have Brexited.
Yeah. Yes. But a lot of them are still in that process of sort of transitioning, even though it's already happened. They're in this sort of the final phase of it, if you like. So what should businesses be doing now in order to prepare for the future?
For some businesses, this is going to be really hard. And we're already seeing that our clients are mostly in the service sector, and they're mostly already trading online, either completely or substantially. Right. So we don't have a lot of people trying to ship cheese to Northern Ireland or truck parts to Belgium. You know, they've got issues that are way beyond my scope because I don't deal with import, export, you know, that sort of thing. But we are in a data transition period post Brexit, and we need to figure out if you are sharing data with people in the EU or getting it back from people in the EU, because the rules about that are changing. And we did a really good, well, I thought it was good, and it was well received, free webinar about that in January. And we've got another one coming up about that in February, where we're actually going through what are the key decisions you need to make. Now, it takes 3/4 of an hour. So this doesn't have room to put that in there. But basically, you've got to work out if that's a big part of your business and you're going to get your ducks in a row, literally, or a tiny part of your business, then you're not going to bother. That's the first thing, because all compliance decisions, in my opinion, have to be taken against your business model and where your money comes from. If you're making 100,000 a year from a European client and the only way they can do business with you is if you get this sorted out, get it sorted out. You know, that's got to be the only answer. And you know, touch base with me on cross-border data provisions. Come to our free webinar in February about it. You'll find it on KoffeeKlatch's events page. It doesn't have to be, you know, I'm seeing a lot of people go, and you've got to give me £5,000 and you've got to do, no, you can get the basics sorted for far, 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 far less than that. If on the other hand, you're in, it's a sideshow to you, you know, it's not really where you're at. You might want to consider referring that business somewhere else, possibly for a commission. You know, that's another thing to think about. You might want to consider what you're doing with it. And I think we're going to see a certain consolidation even in the freelance market of people who've got their ducks in a row, who other people are sending that kind of work to, and people who just can't or won't or aren't that bothered, who will either send it to someone else or pull out. And it affects all sorts of professions, from coaches, often coach across Europe virtually, to we have quite a lot of physiotherapists, type coaches, you know, psychotherapists type coaches who've got this problem of medical data crossing borders. We have till April 30th or maybe June 30th to sort it out. In typical Brexit fashion, we have a deadline with an ability to postpone the deadline or fall short on it. So we're going to be doing sort of monthly, know your basics, but this is where we are now as we go through. For me, I'm extremely reluctant to withdraw from having European clients, partly because I adore my European freelancers, but it has to be cost effective to stay in the game, you know, so we're all looking for solutions, you know.
I mean, how have you found business for yourself since Brexit has happened, since COVID has happened? Because you're pretty much online anyway, and I know you're super efficient.
Well, we were 100% virtual and online before COVID. So to that extent, COVID didn't have an effect in terms of the obvious technology things. What sideswiped us was we have a wholly outsourced team of VAs, many of whom ended up trying to do what they normally do for us with a baby on one knee or homeschooling as people are now. So at one mad moment last year, we were doing 125% of what we thought we were going to do, with 25% of the capability to do it, because people were suddenly going, well, I can only work Thursday night or Sunday afternoon or whatever. And that's fine. They're all self-employed. But that was an interesting thing to manage, you know. And that's actually, we lent into the freelance community to do a lot more on legal changes for free than we normally would do. at a time when unexpectedly there was kind of me left holding the baby. But that was all right. The baby grew, and that was the important thing. Wouldn't like to do that again this year. I couldn't work at that pace, inevitably. Revenue-wise, we staggered, didn't everybody? It took us a while to eventually people realised that they could trade down from thousands to hundreds, and so it sort of sorted itself out, So it was a bit scary. And of course, Brexit for us is not just a compliance problem for our own business, but for our clients. So we are busy. Yeah. And of course, we've got the little detail of the changes to I-35 coming through in April.
Oh, amazing.
So
it's a busy year for you then.
We just dropped a free mini program into our UK Terms of Business customers folders on that, because after long heart searching, we thought for our existing customers that was part of our lean in, that we would. All with ducks, by the way. I mean, that might sound like really, really boring stuff, but actually nothing gives me greater pleasure or greater headache than taking 400 pages worth of psychobabble and turning it into 4 A4 pages, including videos and ducks on the page, Yeah. But that can take months, by the way. It's not simple.
Do you find that there's a lot of misconceptions or myths when it comes to remaining compliant?
Well, I think we live in the age of the myths, if the truth be known. We seem to have arrived at a point in the world, in the business world, when everyone believes completely different things about what on the face of it are the same thing. So it's really hard to tell. I think the biggest myths are micro businesses can't do it at all. And that comes from, we saw this with the original GDPR implementation. By the way, I had absolutely no interest in GDPR until 2017, when we started to prepare our own business for the latest round of updates. And I was like, what? And then our own clients started to come to us and go, and they were in tears, saying people had cold called them and said they needed to pay £1,000 for an audit. And if there was anything they needed to do, they needed to pay like £5,000 to get themselves straight. And we were like, this is ridiculous. Come on, we'll get together as a group. There's a theme here, isn't there? We'll get together as a group and we'll do the basics. I never dreamt in 2017 that in 2021 we would still be having new people joining our KoffeeKlatch GDPR groups. And don't go mad, they're not free, by the way. We do not have a free GDPR group. Because obviously now people have got to update what they're doing. There's new rules on children's data. There's the Brexit issue. It's all going on. I thought we'd be finished by September 2018, to be honest. I never dreamt that people could make it so complicated for freelancers. And a lot of the myths about we can't comply come from people trying to sell products and solutions that are deeply inappropriate to a solopreneur business. Yeah. Because that's how they make their money. Nothing wrong with that. If you've got, a big team across 4 countries, you need a completely different scale out, don't you? A lot of the myths come from the fact that people selling solutions don't understand the micropreneur landscape, and why would they? Because you're not going to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on market research to find out what people who've got 50 quid need. Not in a corporate world, are you? It's not how it works. So I think we were a bit eccentric. We went there because our smaller customers couldn't afford us to go anywhere else, really.
So you adapted?
Yeah, we had to adapt. We're like the Borg, really, and we're still adapting. And a lot of the myths around compliance come from non-adaptive behaviour. So you get someone, for example, who used to be in HR in a big corporation, and he or she leaves with a complete copy of all their manuals. In breach of copyright. Right, sets up as an HR consultant and then tells every micropreneur what you need is this. Because the only world they've ever known is that big corporate world. And you get the same with certain accountants are much better at freelancers than others. I mean, some accountants specialise in transnational, global tax offsetting. I've never really needed a lot of that kind of advice. It's not where I am. It's not how my business operates. We think as micropreneurs that all accountants know the same thing, all HR practitioners know the same thing, but they don't. And very few people specialise in micropreneurs because, to be honest, it's jolly hard to get paid. As micropreneurs have a freebie, and this is the next myth. Imagine the best way to write a contract, and I see this all the time, is randomly go on your rival's website and cut and paste all the bits off that you like the look of. Right? And I say to people, oh, good. So your business model is a cut and paste of all your rivals, isn't it? No, I've got my model. So then they go, contracts are a nuisance because they just stop you doing business. Well, of course they will, because you're trying to do someone else's business. The way they do it, it's a bit like Frankenstein, really assembling the body, isn't it? You know, it wasn't beautiful. And a lot of entrepreneurs think that everything to do with contracts, data privacy policies, you can just randomly get one and apply it. But of course, what you're doing, if you're not careful, is documenting to the world what you promised to do, and then not actually doing it.
Absolutely. I think the question that's on a lot of people's minds right now is, at what point should they outsource their compliance? And the reason I wanted to ask that question as well is because a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, we have this thing of feeling like we need to do everything ourselves. And for a lot of people, it can be a challenge to outsource and to differentiate at what point they need to start outsourcing. And I know this is a bit of a question of saying, like, you can outsource at any point, really. But in your opinion, is there like a defining point when businesses should start to outsource?
And so what do we mean by outsourcing? Because I always tell my clients, you can outsource the work, but you can never outsource the responsibility, right? If you're a freelancer and it goes wrong, it's your money that gets paid out in fines, right? Now, this is a classic with accounting, and I work with bookkeepers and accountants, where if you say to the accountant or the bookkeeper, whose responsibility is it to make sure the right accounts and stuff are submitted to the right people, and then we'll go to the customers, they have to look at the stuff and go, yes, that's correct. If you go to a typical micropreneur and say, who's responsible for making sure your accounts are right, that's my accountant. How would I know? I know nothing about it. This is a classic example. So you can outsource the work, but you can't outsource the responsibility. And the same is true with contracts, with GDPR, with anything. So what I suggest to people is you do need a simple, basic understanding of what you need to do. But you don't necessarily need to do it all, but you need to know enough to make sure the person who is doing it isn't A, failing catastrophically to do it, or B, overcomplicating it. Because we do find a lot of big company consultants who go out and hit the micro market, introduce stuff that is just not appropriate for a solopreneur or a small outsourced team. In terms of outsourcing your compliance, I think you need a strategy for compliance from the get-go with your business. And I know it's a bit late for most of us, right? Because we got going and we don't. I think you need to start thinking about a strategy, because there are areas of your business that if they can go wrong, will shut you down. And you need to get on top of that quicker than areas of your business where perhaps it's not such a big priority. You know, I don't believe that your job as a micropreneur is to comply with all rules everywhere in the world, regardless of cost and regardless of risk. I think your job is to intelligently assess the risk and also be transparent. So if you've got no idea about GDPR, please don't set yourself up as a data security specialist. But, you know, different levels of knowledge are needed. So I think outsourcing the doing in an ideal world should come from understanding what needs to be done. In a practical world, if you haven't got that understanding and it's not being done, you probably need to talk to someone about what your priorities should be. And we don't do everything, by the way. We don't do health and safety. We don't do medical assessments. That's why I was saying to you, COVID's a bit complicated. Because there are very few people who can do it all without their head exploding.
Absolutely,
I think contracts, GDPR and R35 is enough for one girl when you matrix in Brexit. I don't know what heavy lifting regulations are currently doing. You know.
Guys, drop your comments in the comment section below, or if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below. Even if you're watching the replay, drop a hashtag replay followed by your question or your comment. I would love to read them all afterwards as well. And I know Annabel has offered to help any people who are having questions around compliance as well. Annabel, I think your camera has just frozen. We can hear you very clearly. Try just switching your camera on and off, but we can still hear you, so we'll carry on.
Let's have a go. Let's have a mind of its own today, doesn't it? Let's see. Is that better?
Nope, you're still frozen, but we'll carry on. So you mentioned earlier that you have a webinar. You're still frozen, by the way, but we can still hear you clearly, so we're going to carry on. So you mentioned earlier that you're running a webinar for entrepreneurs, business owners. How will your webinar help businesses? And tell us more details about when it is and how people can join.
Hang on.
Oh, we've lost her. I think Annabelle is just having a few connection issues at the moment, so just bear with us. So, I think she's going to join back on in a little while. So, Annabelle and I connected a few months ago, actually, and we connected through an online Facebook group, and we just hit it off straight away. And I've never found a business that cuts to the point in the way that she does. I mean, I love how she handles compliance, and she just makes the whole process really stress-free, simple, easy to understand. And I think a lot of compliance type companies, a lot of solicitors, lawyers, they can introduce a lot of jargon, which can overcomplicate the whole process. And I think what I like about Annabelle's company, KoffeeKlatch, is it just cuts through all of that, and it just makes the whole process really simple, super efficient. And that's why I wanted to get her on to onto Livewire TV today, just to raise awareness of how you guys can keep compliant and make sure that you're actually keeping in line with the law as well. So Annabelle has just come back on. Annabelle, are you there?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Perfect. So I can hear you. Your camera's still off.
Yeah,
so we'll
I
just
but I thought I'd probably get back in the room and worry about that. So that was really sweet what you were saying, by the way. I heard most of it. Thank you very much. That was.
I'm glad. So we're just talking about your course and your webinar and how you help. Hey, you're back, and how you help businesses. So tell us a bit more about the course that you've got coming up, because I think you mentioned something about that earlier, and the webinar as well.
Right, on KoffeeKlatch.co.uk/events, we list our events, and we do a mixture of legal but with rubber ducks and keeping it simple. And that's not because I think anyone who joins us is stupid, by the way, but we all have very, very busy lives and we don't have time to take on massive complications, do we? I think actually most of my clients are a great deal smarter than I am, but normally about something completely different. I am the woman, by the way, who still has yet to get a newsletter out or an email. You know, some things are really above my pay grade. So the Brexit one we're running is on that page. We are really focused on data and the service sector. As I said, we don't, I'm really no use about customs tariffs and stuff like that. My mission is this year, by the way, is to help 1,000 micropreneurs sort out their stuff so they're trading profitably.
Amazing.
I think I'm 43 in so far, so I've got off to a reasonable start, but I need to kind of get the numbers up there. And we try to do stuff that's useful. Everything we do is driven by a customer group, so we're always asking them, what do you want? So we do a lot about compliant marketing that actually works. And no, I'm not a marketing expert. I get guest talk speakers in about that. We do a lot about getting your data backwards and forwards, because at the end of the day, you've got to make a living, haven't you? It's not just compliance for its own sake. And I think the biggest thing our webinars, whether it's about Brexit, whether it's about GDPR, do is we get you understanding that you can get on top of this stuff without spending thousands of pounds on running your business or wake up at 3 a.m. There's a client talking to me the other day, and she said to me, everyone else freaking out about Brexit, everybody else freaking out about I thought, I don't need to bother, I've got KoffeeKlatch. But she kind of does. She needs to book up for some of the events, you know. But I thought that was sweet, because there can't be many people going through all of this thinking, no, not bothered. Sometimes a bit worrying they've got that much faith in us. You know, you think, oh my goodness, supposing if I drop the ball, but that's insurance's fault.
It's a good pressure to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, with our GDPR courses, we do an online course with group support. And again, we started in 2017 with one group. Now we're currently running 5. We've just restarted our children and early years group because there's a lot going on with children's data. We stopped that in 2018 because we had it covered and whatever. It seems to be endless. And all of our contracts and hiring agreements for the people you pay come with group support and live onboarding. So we're constantly generating content in response to. But do you know what KoffeeKlatch means?
You did mention it earlier, but do remind me.
KoffeeKlatch is a group of people who gather around a coffee machine like the water cooler in Australia.
Yes, I remember you saying, because that's where the
it's a very
conversations.
Brand, you know. So when our customers, I was in a customer support group in Facebook this morning, go, right, these are our issues, this is what we're worried about. If it's within our technical remit, because we really don't know everything, sadly, you know, then we will deliver it. So it's always moving with what bothers people.
Amazing.
You know?
Guys, we're going to wrap it up here, but like I've been saying throughout the interview, if you have any questions about compliance and how you can keep the whole process stress-free, number one, get in touch with Annabel because she's brilliant at what she does, but also she's more than happy to answer any questions that you have around compliance as well. So do get in touch with her. If you're watching this on the replay, drop a hashtag replay. I'd love to know who is watching this. And again, if you have any questions that you want Annabel to answer, even if you're watching the replay, drop them in the comments and she will answer them for you, or just get in touch with her directly. Join us next week on Livewire TV, where we're going to be talking all about podcasting, how you can set it up, how you can market your podcasts effectively, and how you can use podcasts to actually generate you more leads. It's going to be a really amazing conversation, and definitely be there next week, Tuesday. See you then. Have an amazing week. Bye for now.